Okay, I believe we'll be able to finish this up here in a few minutes. This is the last installment, the third installment, on how to paint a pathway to the beach in acrylic paint. I have on the palette burnt sienna, blue, yellow ochre, green, and white. It's a pretty limited palette. It's the only thing we will need to finish up the painting. And I'm going to start by mixing a little color for some cast shadows. So let's go back up to the source for just a moment so we can take a look at what we're working with here. We're going to mix up a little paint for these cast shadows running out underneath the trees here over the pathway and into the grassy area on the right hand side. Back down at the palette, we're mixing this with a little blue and a little burnt sienna. Too much burnt sienna in that mixture. And a little white. We want it to remain on the blue side, but we're graying that blue with some burnt sienna. That looks pretty good. We'll go into the painting now with that. And we're pulling out underneath these trees with this combination of blue, burnt sienna, and we're going to allow it to move over the path and then into the grassy area some to the right. We will expand it some in the grassy area because it should be picking up a little bit of the foliage, I suppose. And we'll move out from underneath this tree, out over the pathway, back into the grassy area again. Let's indicate some branches that are moving out from it. A little more foliage, casting shadows. And I think maybe that'll do it for the cast shadows. I am now going to head into the left-hand side of a few of these tree trunks with something that is a little lighter, so the light is coming from the left-hand side in this landscape. And so on the trunks of the trees themselves, we're going to go into, let's go back down to the palette for this, since this is not going to be a long video. It's going to go pretty quickly. Going into some burnt sienna and a little bit of white, and I'm using a little bit of blue to gray that some. Okay, so it's the same combination over here, except for this time it's on the warm side. It's got more burnt sienna in it. So it's again burnt sienna, blue, white, except for this time it's heavy on the burnt sienna. Our shadows were heavy on the blue. So we're going to stick in a little bit of light hitting the left-hand side of some of these trunks in the trees. Just to give them more three-dimensionality, indicate where the light source is to the left-hand side, so get a little higher light in there. Let's go up there to the painting. I think I was painting without the camera on it. So painting in here to the left-hand side, we don't want to kill the right-hand side of these tree trunks because we already have the shadows in there, so we're indicating where light is hitting some of these tree trunks. All right, makes sense to you? Good. Only a couple of more moves that I want to make in this painting. I'm rinsing the brush now. I am going to use a combination to get a little more light in the grassy areas of green and a little burnt sienna. We've talked about that earlier, that burnt sienna is a good way of graying every color that we have out here on the palette, with the exception of the yellow ochre. So we have a little much lighter green, and it's also a little cooler, but that's fine. And we'll place this into our landscape just in a few places, okay? Give the impression of some very, very strong light hitting grassy areas in a place or two. Don't overdo this. We don't need a lot of it. You don't want to defeat purpose of what you've already put down in the painting, so let's put a little bit of it in here and there. All right, and back down to the palette for just a moment. Decision I just made as I watched the paint develop. I didn't rinse the brush, but I'm going into some yellow ochre and white and just a touch of green. It's kind of on the yellow ochre side. I'm going to add a little of that back into some of the grassy areas. I think maybe I could use just a little more variety in there. I'm going to make one more adjustment in the grass before I quit here. Yeah, that's better. I think let's get a little more impact here. Good. Back down to the palette for a moment. I would like in the I mentioned this in the last video, but I don't think it came out all that well. So some of the areas where sand is peeking through in the grassy areas, we'll go for burnt sienna and a little bit of white. So that's turned up a little bit more than I had it earlier. Little areas where a little sand is making its way through the grass. Wouldn't matter if you did a little more than I'm doing or a little less than I'm doing right now, so it would not make that much difference. Okay, we're headed back to our pathway, and this is going to be adding higher light to the pathway, and we're working with burnt sienna and white, that's all. And we want a lighter, higher tint version of that than we already have in the painting. And this will just be dappled light, hitting our sandy area that's running back towards the ocean, the beach there. This is dappled light. I don't want to overdo it, but a few little places where you get the feeling that light is hitting that sandy area there. Okay. I'm avoiding these shadows because we were working from dark to light, so the deep shadows are already in there. This high light we're laying on the surface of the painting. Alright, looks good to me. Right, I'm only going to make one other move in this painting, and rinsing the brush again. That last move that I'm going to make is to bring up some of the foliage just a little more light in some of the tops of the foliage. So for that, I'm going to go into green again and yellow ochre, heavy on the yellow ochre, and white. So I'm a little bit lighter than what I already have in the painting. Back into the painting. We're only in the tops, so we're going to hit it with just a little higher light. And we're staying within the light areas that we've already established up there, but just one more level of light in there. Over here, more light hitting this. In a place or two. Okay, I think that gives it, that strong sense of light that you get on the coast. So. I'm moving this brush in a quick sort of little round, tap, tap, tap direction. I'm not what do we think here? Looks pretty good, I believe. I think that we could let this stand at that. This will be somewhat dependent on how your clouds came out earlier, but if you wanted to see a little bit more light, stronger light in those clouds, you could go in and strengthen them a little with some additional white. But I don't know, I kind of like the wispiness of the clouds, the way they came out on the first pass. So I don't think I'm going to stay in there and mess with that. That's our first landscape. At this point, you can take a very fine brush and sign it in the lower right-hand corner. There's no, it's my painting, so there's no copyright here with this. It's a demo. And we will move along from here. So good luck with this. Hope it goes well, and I hope you enjoy it.